Good to see you.
It's weird to be talking to you in this different time slot. You think it's actually a good thing that Peter Thiel's stepping aside since he's an early investor?
Well, you know, it's definitely something where if the company has a vision where they want to take metaverse, I don't think Peter had probably the same messaging that they wanted to have. The company's really pivoting. So if they're trying to show they're pivoting, they need to take a different direction in their advisors. If that's the case, but you know, I can't help but think the immediate headlines that we're all watching with the backdrop of politics and approaching the midterm elections, I can't help believe that that's probably the main reason. But if we wanted to spin it, they're both speaking very nicely. It sounds like a love fest, so they're ending off pretty nicely with each other. And on a shareholder front, if you want this company to pivot, it's pivoting.
Melissa, you brought up the issue of whether Thiel would go to another social media company. You know, one thing, he did invest in a rival company last year in Rumble, which is it's social media, it's video, it's sort of YouTube-like, very popular among conservatives. It was also backed by J.D. Vance, who's running for Senate in Ohio. But what's interesting is that it was actually in the news today for some reason. It's SPACing, and its SPAC shot up today. The ticker symbol of the SPAC is CFVI. And it's because they apparently offered Joe Rogan $100 million to leave Spotify and go. But I just thought it was notable, Melissa, because you brought up the point about Thiel going to another potential social media. And there were some questions last year when he made this investment. And now ultimately was still on the board of Facebook when he did it.
It crossed my mind that perhaps Rumble is going to be increasingly a competitor, or could increasingly be a competitor to a Facebook, or I should say a Meta. And so the cleanest way for Peter Thiel to do that, to fully back that, would be to step away from Facebook. But that was pure, I want to be clear, that was pure speculation on that front. Steve?
No, but there was money there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you see a lot of people on Twitter actually saying, I'm going to leave Twitter, or I'm going to also be on Rumble. And so I thought that was sort of interesting. That's something you increasingly see these days. Steve, you're a big proponent of the 3-day rule. 3 days for Meta. Yeah. Some habits are hard to break.
Right.
What do you make of the stock now?
So when the reason for the 3-day rule is you want to give the stock time to settle in. So the first day, I think it was the low was around 235. Second day was 230. And then today is day 3, and I think it bottomed out at around 224. If you go back on the chart, go to pre-pandemic, stock was $218. That's before, that was the low of the day before it had that massive slide like every other stock did going into the pandemic March low. So I think it's pretty interesting, Melissa, if you look back on Netflix, they pushed that one below the pre-pandemic level as well. It's almost like they want to get to a certain level where it becomes value. Problem is you don't know value unless it's in the rearview mirror. So if they're investing large scales of money that are going to make investors queasy, and user growth is slowing, that adds up to a non-value proposition. We're too far away from metaverse actually moving the needle. So when you look at valuation on the company, can it have that blowout valuation? No, it's never going to get there, because the core is always going to be the Titanic for Facebook, which was always the benefit to owning Facebook. So I think they're carved themselves out into a corner, to mix metaphors. It's to me, if you're an investor, you have to be pretty afraid that 218 pre-pandemic level on a technical basis doesn't hold. So that's what I'd be worried about if I'm a bull.
All right, 218 is the magic number. We'll watch for that. Steve, thanks. Steve Grasso.